What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. If you want to support me, you can use my TCGPlayer link in the description down below, or as always, feed the algorithm by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Now, today's Deck Tech is a budget build on Jolrael, and what started as a fun little jank, animation land deck, turned into, maybe a fun little jank land destruction deck. I don't know. It all depends how your opponent wants to play, right? If they want to let you attack with your lands and we have our fun drawing cards while animating those giant lands, we have a fun little janky deck. And if they don't let you do that, maybe we have a fun little janky deck where we animate all of their lands and then, Azori's predation them to death. Again, it's their choice. If they want to let us have our fun, we let them have their fun. So, if that sounds like a deck tech you want to get into, let's get into it. Let's kick it off with that land animation. We have Invasion of Zendikar. This is a nifty card. Once we go ahead and crack this battle, we're going to get a 4/4 land creature, which will go ahead and draw us cards with our commander. Harmonious Emergence. This is one of the only enchant land cards that actually protect the land. Roaring Earth. Super simple. We either channel this and pump it to the moon, or we stick it on the battlefield and we get continuous value and pump our creatures. Leon War Lone Speaker. Not only is this a mana dork, this is a mana dork that can animate lands. Perfect in the deck. Word Collar Automaton. Very flexible. We either cast it for 10 mana and we get a giant 8/8 land, or we cast it for 3 mana or 4 mana and get a 3/3. Not terrible. Tatiova, Steward of Tides. This one will give our lands flying as well as animate some lands whenever some lands enter the battlefield. Awakening of Vitu-Ghazi. This will just get you a 9/9 land. I like it. Waker of the Wilds. This one is repeatable. We just keep pumping this girl's ability and reanimating those lands, throwing a lot of counters on them. Primal Adversary is really flexible in the deck because late game we animate a lot of games and early game we animate a little bit and we start drawing cards with our commander, right? Kamal, Heart of Krosa. I like this guy. Those lands are going to be indestructible and he's going to buff all of our lands while we're at it. Every combat step, +3/+3 and trample, you have to love it. Sylvan Awakening and Kamal's Will. These will pair perfectly with Kamal. Imagine that. Now all of our lands get the +3/+3 and all of our lands are creatures. Additionally, these are indestructible lands, so we don't have to worry about losing them, and Kamal's Will can remove a creature. Liege of the Tangle. Now, these lands will not be indestructible, but this is where we, talk to our playgroup. Hey, is land destruction really what we want to be doing here, or are you going to take the 8 damage? Nissa, Steward of Elements. We're looking at that -6 with her, right? She's super flexible. We get some scry with her, and late game, like I said, we can just pump her for 6 or 8, I guess, and then start smacking people with those 5/5 lands. Eudora Grave Gardener. This one's really solid if we lose our lands, right? Now they just come back. Now let's get into the more control-y stuff with Jolrael, Empress of Beasts. Now we can discard 2 cards and either animate our whole board of lands, or like I said, hey, if your opponent's not playing ball, we'll animate all of their lands and start taking their lands out. Kamal, Fist of Krosa. This guy, we can either use him to animate our lands, or again, we can start taking opponents' lands out. Nature's Revolt will animate everybody's lands. Now, our opponents are going to be a little more screwed than us because half of our deck is literally just built around buffing our creatures up. So, we just buff our lands up and our lands are going to be bigger than their lands, so we can take them out. Another card I wanted to cover is Echoing Equation. We can animate all of our lands and then turn all of our lands into our commander. Now, we can essentially just buff every land all at once, giving it flying and +X equal to our hand, and then we will draw a ton of cards. Moving on to the core of the deck, we have those cards that buff our lands with Earth Surge and Sylvan Advocate. Now they just get +2/+2. Thunderfoot Baloth and Blossoming Bogbeast will give all of your creatures +2/+2 and trample, which can be really useful. Then, since we are drawing a lot of cards, I thought it'd be fun to put in a combo with Ominous Seas and Greater Good. The hardest part with this combo is netting your first 8/8, but once you create one of those 8/8 Krakens, you can essentially draw your deck. All you have to do is sacrifice the 8/8, you get 8 first shadow counters because you drew 8 cards with Greater Good, and then you can create another 8/8, netting you 5 cards every turn. This will make it to where that land gets absolutely massive, and we can start one-shotting people with these lands that we animate because our hand is so huge. Rufix, God of Horizons. This guy's in the deck for 2 reasons. One, we run X spells, so to be able to store our mana for a massive X spell can be huge. Additionally, we have no maximum hand size. Our commander wants us to hold a lot of cards in our hand, so that's perfect. Listen, I'm not even going to attempt to butcher this girl's name, so we're going to call her Crazy Hand Lady, and she can win us the game. Now, we won't be using that 4 to draw a card very often, but we can very easily get 13 cards in our hand with this deck, paired with those X spells. That just kind of sounds like a fun way to catch our opponents off guard and win the game. Body of Knowledge, another no maximum hand size card that can also draw us cards. And it goes without saying, but we also run Reliquary Tower just for the same reason. Tyrannid Harridan, I'm running this because it's a budget card. It does cost 6 mana, but we're ramping to the moon and it gets out of hand very quickly. You know, as a backup plan, we'll just win through killing people with a lot of Tyrannids. Strionic Resonator, this can copy our commander's ability. Now we're animating 2 lands and drawing 2 cards, and it's twice as good. Turvagon, again, we can cast this guy for a lot. He's going to replace himself, so he's not even that bad in the deck, and then he can just create an instant board state. You can't hate on that. Eternal Witness can get anything we need back from our graveyard. Wilderness Reclamation, this works really well because 1, we're attacking with our lands, and 2, we have instant speed X spell cards, so if we want to draw 13 cards on our end step before our turn and then win the game out of nowhere with the Crazy Hand Lady, that's a thing we can do with Wilderness Reclamation. Moving on to card advantage, we have Biden of Thassa. I like this because we can force our opponents to attack, leaving them wide open for our army of lands. That way we don't have to worry about them blocking and us losing anything. Tatiova Benthic Druid, you guys knew she would be here. She's amazing in the deck. Soul's Majesty, those lands can get pretty massive, so hey, let's draw cards equal to their power. Hunter's Insight and Hunter's Prowess. Now, Hunter's Prowess might look a little better, but hey, it is sorcery speed, so they do have a heads up to either destroy the creature or block with it. So definitely only attack an open opponent with this, but it can draw you a ton of cards. Pull from Tomorrow, Stroke of Genius, and Mindspring are all X spell card draws. 2 of those are instant, so it's pretty solid. Even the Score, another solid card in the deck that'll lower its casting cost, and we can draw cards at instant speed. You gotta love it. Moving on to that ramp, we have Druid class. Not only will this gain us some life, it'll let us play some additional lands and reanimate some lands. That's exactly what we want to do. Secure a Tribe Elder, Colony, Heart, Expedition, and Rampant Growth all come down turn 2 and start the snowballing effect. Cultivate, Kodama's Reach, and Nissa's Pilgrimage are all super solid cards to throw lands onto the battlefield. Migration Path, Harrow, Rolling Regrowth. Again, we're just throwing a lot of lands onto the battlefield. We need a lot of lands because we're going to be animating these lands, right? Also, we have a lot of big creatures in the deck, so we want to be able to cast those. Explosive Vegetation, and then Open the Way. I love Open the Way because it has the possibility to throw 4 lands onto the battlefield. I don't know a scenario where you wouldn't, unless it's very early game, which that's probably the scenario where you wouldn't, but late game you get 4 lands onto the battlefield with this. That's amazing. Moving on to removal, we have Beast Within. Super solid, gets rid of any permanent. Nature's Claim, 1 mana, solid for those artifacts and enchantments. An Offer You Can't Refuse, 1 mana counterspell, you can't beat that. Well, there's free counterspells now, but we don't talk about those. Reclamation Sage, a solid staple. Curse of the Swine, I like this one because it exiles and it can hit multiple targets. Devastation Tide and Flood of Tears. These cards will get rid of all of the creatures, and then the plan is for us to be left with a huge board of animated lands to start swinging in at our open opponents. Lastly, we have Oversimplify and Azuri's Predation. Now, these are the cards we're going to punish our opponents for killing our lands with. If they want to play that game where they want to kill our lands, we can go ahead and animate their whole board using cards like Jolrael, Kamal Fist of Krosa, and Nature's Revolt. Now, we just cast Azuri's Predation and we have a massive board of 4/4 beasts and nobody has lands. Now, that doesn't sound like fair magic, but honestly, we win the game right after that, so they don't even have to wait for this long drawn out game of no lands, because hey, we will still have our lands. That's going to do it for the deck tech, guys. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to boost that algorithm, and I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors. I'll see you in the next one.